Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Christ, being raised from the dead, will die no more. Death has no more dominion over him. Those who love me will keep my word, and my Father will love them, and we will come and make our home with them. Alleluia. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. The Holy Gospel according to St. John, the 15th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. Jesus said to his disciples, "As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you, that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should abide, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. This I command you, to love one another." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Grace, peace, and much joy to you, people of God. We begin right where we ended last Sunday, in the 15th chapter of St. John's Gospel, in the midst of Jesus' farewell discourse, his final promises and commands given to his disciples before they are parted by the cross, given to the church before the ascension brings to the end another annual celebration of Easter. And the promise is great. In God's household, we are not servants or domestics, but friends of the firstborn Son, and so adopted as children ourselves. It's a very loving household. In the 6 verses we have from 1 John this morning, the word love appears 5 times. In the 8 verses we have of St. John's Gospel, the word love appears 9 times. God's household is a very loving household indeed. Now, when we hear that word, it conjures up many things for us. Family, on this hallmark holiday of Mother's Day. Romance, friendship, all sorts of internal emotions and external actions. And of course, in the world we live in, no word more than love has been so debased and sexualized and politicized and robbed of its fundamental meaning, so that it could be twisted, as Luther might say, like a wax nose to fit any kind of agenda. But right in the middle of today's gospel, we have 2 lines that tell us what Jesus meant when he used the word love. Right in the center of this reading, Jesus says something that harks back to his Good Shepherd discourse in chapter 10. He says, "There is no greater love than this, to lay down your life for your friends." And of course, that's what Jesus said the Good Shepherd does. He lays down his life for the sheep. Now, of course, nearing the end of his earthly walk, Jesus no longer speaks in figures of shepherds and sheep. He says that he will die for those he has called his friends. And just before that, Jesus repeats the commandment that he gave back in chapter 13 at the foot washing, the one we hear every Maundy Thursday. His commandment that we are to love one another as he has loved us. That same self-giving love. Not an emotion that we churn up within ourselves, but action directed towards others. Not something that's about me, but about other people. Love, Jesus tells us, is directed toward others. So when we say that God's household is a very loving household, there is a love that is directed by each person of the Holy Trinity to the other persons of the Holy Trinity. Jesus says, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. The Father loves the Son. That very love is the Spirit. And Jesus says that he is, by calling us his friends, incorporating us into this loving household. The Father loves the Son, and the Son abides in the Father. The Son abides in us. He says that he is sending us to bear fruit, and that fruit will abide. That's that word meno that we ran into in the first part of John 15 last week. The abiding. This love is not something transitory. It's not something that comes and goes. It abides. It remains. But it's not just really about love, is it? It might seem strange to us when Jesus says, "You are my friends if you do what I command you." From our point of view, we say, well, what kind of friendship is that? If you're just going to boss me around. But that's not exactly how it works in God's household, where the Father, in his absolute freedom, begets the Son, and from those two proceeds the Spirit, and they work together in what the fathers of the church call a perichoresis, which literally means dancing together. Their mutual self-giving love, their obedience to one another is offered in joy. The obedience becomes love. Can that be so for us? At first glance, it seems not. The powers of the world are too strong for us. Weak and broken and sinful human beings. We will never be able to overcome the powers of the world that resist God's will. Those powers are resisting God's will within each one of us. But another one of Jesus' great and final promises is that he has overcome the world. That actually comes shortly after what we read from the farewell discourses today. And St. John, in that first letter of John, the cover letter for the gospel, says that the victory that overcomes the world is our faith. And that's something different than saying that we have something within us, like, for instance, our love, maybe, that could overcome the world. John says that that which is born of God overcomes the world. And our faith is born of God. In his divine freedom, the Father begets the Son, creates the world, sends the Son into the world to demonstrate this divine self-offering, this love that shows itself as obedience. The love that is buried like a seed in the earth and then springs up. The true vine, as we heard Jesus say last week, with whom we are connected as branches on that vine, so that we might receive our power in the world from him and not from ourselves. And the Spirit that proceeds from both the vine and the vine dresser, from the Son and the Father who sent him, that Spirit, as we heard from Acts, falls on all who hear the word. Because the Spirit works through means. The Spirit isn't wandering around the world. It's okay for Finn to wander around. He's all right. And since he's baptized, he's got the Spirit in him, so I'm mistaken. The Spirit does wander around. But not primarily. The Spirit of the Lord fills the whole earth. We know that from Psalm 104. But to my point, the Spirit has chosen to work through means, the means of grace. The Spirit falls on all who hear the word, and the Spirit also comes to us through the mysteries that the church calls sacraments. These too, like the word, come from outside us. We may despair that the world will overcome us, that our love will never be strong enough to overcome the world. But Christ is risen, the one buried in the earth, sprung up as the true vine, the one who sends the Spirit that proceeds from the Father, who comes to us in the Word and by the water and the blood. The water and the blood that sprang from Jesus' wounded side, which is the water of holy baptism, whereby we became adopted into this loving family. And the blood, which, together with Christ's holy, crucified, and risen body, is offered to us at his table, so that we might receive his strength in a world that is too strong for us. It is not that we can overcome the world. We can't. But Christ is risen. And what overcomes the world is our faith, the gift that enables us to believe that and show it in our lives, not by a kind of love that relates everything back to me, but the kind of self-giving love that lays itself down for all those who Jesus has called friends. It's a loving household, this household of God. It's an obedient household, this household of God. And it is a joyous household. This household in which the crucified and risen one is the firstborn son. The one who calls every single one of us his friends. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.